My name is Avery Walsh. I'm 29 years old. And the night my father accused me of stealing $250,000 was the night I realized that sometimes the people who destroy your life are sitting right across the dinner table. The smell of Mom's pot roast filled our Denver house that Sunday evening, rich and familiar, the kind of scent that usually meant safety. We'd been doing these monthly dinners for 5 years straight. No excuses, no cancellations. Family first, that was Dad's rule. I was halfway through my second helping, laughing at one of Dad's terrible Broncos jokes when he set down his fork. "Avery," he said. Something in his tone made my stomach tighten. Even Tyler, my 8-year-old nephew, stopped kicking his legs under the table. Mom froze mid-reach for the gravy boat. Samantha's eyes flicked up. "I need to ask you something important." The air shifted. "Where's the $250,000 I gave you?" My fork slipped from my fingers and clattered against my plate. "What?" The word came out thin, hollow. "The $250,000, Dad repeated calmly. "The money you said you desperately needed." I felt like the room tilted sideways. "Dad, I never got any money from you." Silence. The kind that presses against your ears until they ring. Mom's hand flew to her chest. Derek stopped chewing. Tyler looked between us, confused. "I called you 3 months ago," Dad continued. "You were crying. You said your medical bills were overwhelming you. You said if you didn't get $250,000 by the end of the week, you'd lose everything." My heartbeat roared. "My surgery was covered by insurance," I said. "I never called you. I never asked for money." Dad's expression didn't soften. "You told me to wire it to a new account. Said it had to be quiet for tax reasons." A cold, nauseating realization crept into my bones. "What account?" I whispered. "I don't have any special account." That's when Samantha shoved her chair back. "I need air," she muttered. "Sit down, Samantha." Dad's voice cracked like a whip. She froze, hand on the doorknob. And in that second, when she slowly turned around, face pale, mascara trembling under glassy eyes, I knew something was horribly wrong. Dad pulled out his phone. "I have the voicemail recordings." He pressed play. My voice filled the room, or something almost identical to it. It mentioned the scar on my knee from falling off my bike at 7. My college roommate, Sarah. The time I got food poisoning from that Chinese place on 5th Street. Details only family knew. My gaze drifted to Samantha. Her hands were gripping her water glass so tightly her knuckles had gone white. "Sam," I said quietly, "how did you afford that new BMW?" "Derek got a promotion," she shot back too quickly. "Derek makes $15 an hour," Mom said softly. The silence that followed was suffocating. Dad reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila folder. "The account was opened 3 weeks before the call," he said, "in Avery's name, using her social security number." My pulse pounded in my throat. "That's identity theft," I breathed. Dad slid a paper across the table. "The signature doesn't match Avery's." I looked down, and my world cracked open. I knew that handwriting. I'd seen it on birthday cards, on grocery lists, on sticky notes stuck to the fridge for 26 years. It was Samantha's. "Oh my God," Mom whispered. Samantha stood up so fast, she knocked over her water glass. It spilled across the tablecloth, but no one moved. "I can explain," she sobbed. "It's not what you think." "You used my name," I said, my voice shaking. "You made Dad think I was desperate. You stole from him." "I borrowed it," she screamed. "I was going to pay him back." Dad's face turned red. "You committed fraud," he said. "You made me believe my daughter was in danger." Car doors slammed outside. Not one. Several. Flashing red and blue lights reflected through the dining room window. "Oh no," Samantha whispered. The doorbell rang. "Police, open up!" Dad's voice went quiet. "I called them this afternoon, after the bank." Mom gasped. "You called the police on your own daughter?" "I reported identity theft," Dad said. "I didn't know it was her." I walked to the door on shaking legs. 3 officers stood outside. "Evening, ma'am. Detective Rodriguez, Denver PD. We're looking for Samantha Walsh." "She's here," I said. "We have a warrant for her arrest." The words didn't feel real. They entered. Mom stood behind Samantha, hand on her shoulder. "Samantha Walsh," Rodriguez said. You're under arrest for identity theft and wire fraud. Wait, I blurted. Can't we just fix this? She'll pay it back. Ma'am, he said gently, this crossed state lines. It's federal. As they cuffed her, Samantha looked at Dad. Daddy, please, I just needed help. For what? He demanded. But they were already leading her out. We watched through the window as they placed my sister in the back of a police cruiser. Neighbors stepped onto their lawns. Our family's worst moment becoming public spectacle. Tyler slept through it all on the couch. Mom sank into Dad's recliner. My baby girl, she whispered. But I couldn't stop thinking about the unfinished sentence. She needed help. For what? And where was the $250,000 now? The next morning, I found myself standing in the lobby of Jefferson County Jail, clutching gas station coffee that had long gone cold. I was about to find out. The visiting room at Jefferson County Jail smelled like disinfectant and stale air. The kind of place where hope goes to sit quietly in a corner and reconsider itself. I sat behind the thick plastic partition, phone pressed to my ear, waiting. When Samantha walked in wearing an orange jumpsuit, something inside me cracked. She looked smaller. Her hair, always perfectly curled, hung limp around her face. Her mascara was gone. Her posture had collapsed inward, like someone had scooped out her spine. She picked up the receiver. Avery, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Sorry. The word felt microscopic compared to the crater she'd blown into our family. Sorry doesn't fix this, I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. You stole from Dad. You used my identity. You could have ruined my life. Tears slid down her cheeks immediately. I never meant for it to go this far. Then tell me, I said, what did you need $250,000 for? She looked over her shoulder like someone might be listening. It's Derek. My stomach tightened. What about him? He's been gambling, she said, her voice barely audible. Online poker, sports betting, trips to Black Hawk. It started small, a few thousand here and there. Then it just spiraled. How much? I asked. She closed her eyes. 180,000. The number landed like a hammer. And the people he owes? I pressed. They're not credit card companies, she said. They're not the kind you negotiate with. My mouth went dry. That's why you stole from Dad? I borrowed it, she insisted weakly. Derek had a system. He said he could win it back, double it. We'd return the money before anyone noticed. And? Her shoulders shook. He lost it in 2 weeks. Every dollar. The BMW. The designer handbags. The diamond earrings. All camouflage. Derek lost his job 6 months ago, she continued. He kept missing shifts to gamble. We're 3 months behind on the mortgage. The jewelry's from a pawn shop. The car is leased. I stared at her. You let us believe you were thriving. I was trying to keep everything from falling apart, she whispered. Dad would have never helped if he knew it was gambling. You remember Uncle Pete? I did. 15 years ago, Uncle Pete's addiction had ripped through the family. Dad refused to lend him money, said he wouldn't enable self-destruction. Pete died alone in a cheap motel in Vegas. So instead, I said quietly, you forged my name. Her silence was answer enough. Where's Derek now? That's when her expression changed. Fear. Real fear. I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? He dropped Tyler at school yesterday. He never came home. Tyler had to walk to Mrs. Henderson's house because no one picked him up. A chill crept up my spine. And the money? She swallowed. He emptied our checking account, the last 70,000. My grip tightened around the phone. He ran? She nodded miserably. And the people he owes? I asked. They called this morning, she said. They know he's gone. They know I was arrested. My heart pounded. What did they say? They said if they don't get their money by Friday, they'll collect from his family instead. The room suddenly felt too small. What does that mean, Samantha? Her lips trembled. It means they'll come after me. And if they can't get to you, she hesitated. They might go after Tyler. Everything inside me went cold. Tyler. 8 years old. Still believes in Santa Claus. Have you told the police? I asked. And say what? She snapped bitterly. That my gambling addict husband used stolen money to fund debts with organized criminals? That loan sharks are threatening my child? You think that helps my case? She wasn't wrong. It would bury her. There's more, she whispered. My stomach dropped. What? Derek didn't just gamble Dad's money. He used it as collateral. He placed bigger bets. Bets that made the $250,000 look small. How big? Her eyes met mine through the scratched plastic. $500,000. The air left my lungs. He owes over $500,000. I felt dizzy. That's impossible. He thought he could win it back in one night. He kept saying one more bet would fix everything. And now? Now he's gone, she said. And those men think our family has the money. I pressed my forehead against the cool plastic divider. This wasn't just fraud anymore. This was something darker. Sam, I said quietly, did Derek ever threaten you? Her silence stretched too long. Sometimes, she admitted. When I told him to stop gambling. He'd get angry, say I didn't believe in him. Did he ever hurt you? She shook her head quickly. No, not like that. But the house never felt safe when he was losing. A guard announced visiting time was almost over. Samantha leaned closer. They said Friday at midnight, she whispered urgently. If they don't get their money, they start collecting. How? She swallowed hard. I don't know, but they knew Tyler's school. They knew Mom and Dad's address. My blood ran cold. This wasn't random. They'd been watching. The guard tapped the glass. Time's up. Samantha pressed her hand against the divider. Avery, please protect Tyler. Whatever happens to me, don't let them touch him. I placed my palm against hers. I won't. But as I walked out of that jail, sunlight glaring against my eyes, I realized something terrifying. We weren't just cleaning up Samantha's mistake. We were standing in the middle of something criminal, organized, dangerous. And Derek, the man who had married into our family with a charming smile and a hardware store paycheck, had pulled us straight into it. I drove directly to Samantha and Derek's house in Aurora. If Derek had disappeared, he'd left something behind. I could feel it, and I needed to find it before Friday came. Samantha's house in Aurora looked painfully normal. White siding, trimmed hedges, a plastic basketball hoop tipped over on the driveway. Tyler's scooter still lying near the garage door like he'd abandoned it mid-race. From the outside, it was the kind of place where people worried about HOA violations and sprinkler schedules, not $500,000 gambling debts. I unlocked the front door with the spare key Samantha had given me years ago. The silence inside felt wrong, not peaceful, abandoned. Derek's coffee mug still sat on the kitchen counter, a dried brown ring clinging to the bottom. Tyler's backpack was by the stairs, unzipped, homework half spilling out. It looked like someone had meant to come back. I moved through the house slowly, my pulse drumming in my ears. In Derek's home office, the air smelled stale, sweat, and cheap cologne. His computer was still on, logged in. 3 gambling websites open in different tabs, zeros across the account balances. But the betting history, my breath caught. Each wager larger than the last. $50,000.
$12,000.
$25,000. Then the final one, 3 days ago. A $500,000 bet on a college basketball game. Lost. I stared at the screen. He didn't owe $180,000. He owed over $500,000. The room felt like it was shrinking. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me not to. Hello? Is this Avery Walsh? The voice on the other end was gravelly, controlled, cold. Who's asking? Someone very interested in your brother-in-law's whereabouts. My fingers tightened around the phone. I don't know where he is. That's unfortunate, the man replied, because Derek owes us a considerable amount of money. My heartbeat spiked. I told you, I don't know where he is. A soft chuckle. We know where you are. The words slid under my skin. We know where your parents live. We know where little Tyler goes to school. The threat wasn't subtle. It didn't need to be. What do you want? I forced out. We want our money. $547,000 by Friday at midnight. That's impossible. Then we start collecting from his family. The line went dead. I stood in Derek's office staring at the wall, every nerve in my body buzzing. This wasn't desperate gamblers. This was organized crime, and they had done their homework. I drove straight to the Denver Police Department. Detective Rodriguez met me in a small interrogation room, his expression sharpening as I explained everything. The gambling history, the $500,000 bet, the phone call. He leaned back in his chair slowly. This escalated fast. Can you protect my family? I asked. We can increase patrols, move your parents somewhere temporary. But these guys, he exhaled, they know how to operate just inside the law until they don't. They threatened Tyler. His jaw tightened. That changes things. He folded his hands on the table. There's one option. I didn't like the tone of that. What option? We use you as bait. The word made my stomach drop. What? They think Derek's family has access to the money. If you call them back, tell them you found something Derek hid, we can set up a controlled meet. We wire you. Get them on tape admitting to extortion. And if they bring guns, we'll have surveillance, tactical team. You won't be alone. It didn't feel reassuring, but neither did waiting until Friday. I thought about Tyler, about Samantha crying behind glass, about my parents sitting at home pretending everything wasn't falling apart. Okay, I said. Rodriguez nodded once. Call them. I dialed the number that had called me. They picked up on the first ring. Yes? I found something Derek left behind, I said, forcing steadiness into my voice. Not all of it, but enough to start. A pause. How much? $70,000. Another pause. Where are you? That depends, I said. I need proof he's alive. A low laugh. Set a meeting for tomorrow night. We'll talk. The call ended. Rodriguez gave me a tight nod. Good. As I left the station, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. We know you went to the cops. My blood ran cold. Bad move. The price just went up to $750,000. You have until Thursday. I stopped walking. They were watching. How? I whispered. Rodriguez saw my face drain and took the phone from my hand. They've got eyes somewhere, he muttered. We'll sweep your parents' house. Wednesday evening, I found myself sitting in a rental car outside an abandoned warehouse in Commerce City, wearing a wire, trying not to throw up. Detective Rodriguez's voice crackled in my earpiece. Remember, Avery, keep them talking. We need them to state the threat clearly. I had moved my parents to a safe house earlier that day. Tyler was staying with Derek's sister in Colorado Springs. Everyone I loved was as safe as we could make them, but my hands still shook. A text came through. Address. Come alone. The warehouse district was empty at this hour, shadows stretching long under broken streetlights. I stepped out of the car. Each footstep echoed too loudly in the silence. The warehouse door creaked open before I could knock. A man in an expensive suit stood there, slicked back hair, expressionless eyes. Ms. Walsh, he said smoothly. Thank you for coming. I'm Vincent. Where's Derek? I demanded, a faint smile. Safe. For now. He stepped aside. I walked in. Two other men stood near a folding table. One shifted slightly, and I saw it, the outline of a gun under his jacket. My throat went dry. Please, Vincent gestured. Let's discuss your family's debt. It's not my family's debt, I said. It's Derek's. Vincent tilted his head. When he married your sister, he became family. In our world, family shares responsibility. One of the men narrowed his eyes. Boss, he said suddenly. She's wired. My heart stopped. Vincent's gaze dropped to my jacket, then back up to my face. Disappointment. That was foolish, Ms. Walsh. The men stepped toward me, and for one terrifying second, I thought I had just signed my own death warrant. The temperature in the warehouse seemed to drop 10 degrees. She's wired, the man repeated. Vincent didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Ms. Walsh, he said almost gently, did you really think you could outsmart us? My pulse thundered so loudly I could barely hear the faint static in my earpiece. One of the men reached toward me, and then, police! Nobody move! The warehouse exploded into chaos. Metal doors crashed open from both sides. Flashlights cut through the dim space like blades. Officers flooded in, weapons drawn. Vincent's men reached instinctively for their guns, but they were already surrounded. On the ground! Hands where I can see them! Within seconds, the 3 men were face down on the concrete, wrists being yanked into cuffs. I staggered backward, my legs weak. Detective Rodriguez rushed toward me. You okay? I nodded, though my entire body was shaking. Rodriguez crouched beside Vincent, who was being pulled to his feet. Vincent Corelli, Rodriguez announced, voice firm. You're under arrest for extortion, racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder. I grabbed Rodriguez's arm. Derek, I said, where is he? Vincent looked up at me and smiled. Not angry, not panicked, amused. Derek? He said calmly. Derek's been dead for 3 days. The words didn't make sense at first. Dead. No, I whispered. He thought he could steal from us, Vincent continued coolly. Thought he could run with our money. That never ends well. You killed him, I said. Vincent tilted his head slightly. The world tilted. Derek, reckless, selfish, addicted, was still Tyler's father. And now he was gone. Where is he? Rodriguez demanded. Vincent shrugged. That information might be negotiable. Rodriguez's jaw tightened. You don't get to negotiate. But Vincent just smiled again as they hauled him away. The warehouse echoed with radio chatter and footsteps. Officers swept the building. Evidence bags came out. Cameras flashed. I stood in the middle of it all, numb. The threat was over. But the cost? Irreversible. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept seeing Tyler's face, hearing his voice. What about Daddy? How do you explain execution-style murder to an 8-year-old? How do you explain that his father chose greed over safety? The next morning, Rodriguez called. They're not talking about the body yet, he said, but we're putting pressure on them. And Derek? I asked quietly. We're treating it as a homicide. The word hit differently this time. Homicide. Not disappearance. Not runaway. Dead. I drove to my parents' temporary safe house. Mom looked 10 years older overnight. Dad was pacing, silent, hands clasped behind his back. Is it over? Mom asked. They arrested them, I said. But what? Dad pressed. I swallowed. They said Derek is dead. Mom's dad closed his eyes. For a moment, none of us spoke. Despite everything Derek had done, he had sat at our dinner table, held Tyler's hand crossing the street, helped Dad shovel snow last winter. He was family. Tyler came running into the living room. Aunt Avery, can I show you something? He held up a drawing. It was a stick figure family. Mommy, Daddy, him, Grandma, Grandpa, me, all smiling. I knelt down slowly. It's beautiful, I whispered. Is Daddy coming home tomorrow? He asked casually. My throat closed. Dad stepped forward and gently placed a hand on Tyler's shoulder. Buddy, he said softly, sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. Tyler frowned. What kind of mistake? The kind you can't come back from. But we didn't say that. Instead, we told him there had been an accident, that his father had died. Tyler didn't cry at first. He just stared. Then he walked quietly to the couch and hugged his toy car to his chest. That silence was worse than screaming. 2 days later, Vincent broke. Under federal pressure, he gave up the location. A storage unit in Thornton. When they opened it, they found Derek's body. And something else. A black duffel bag. Inside, cash. Stacks of it. $847,000. Rodriguez called me personally. We ran the bills, he said. $250,000 is your father's. The rest, illegally skimmed from gambling operations. Derek hadn't just been losing money. He'd been stealing from them, too. Building his own secret stash. Planning to disappear. With Tyler? I asked. That's our working theory, Rodriguez said. My stomach twisted. Derek hadn't just gambled recklessly. He had been preparing to run. Leave Samantha. Leave the debt. Start over. And when Vincent found out, he paid for it. 3 weeks later, I sat in a federal courtroom. Samantha stood beside her attorney, pale, small. She pleaded guilty to identity theft and wire fraud. The deal. 2 years in federal prison. Possibility of parole in 18 months if she cooperated. When the judge read the sentence, Samantha didn't cry. She just nodded once, as if she had already accepted her fall long ago. Outside the courthouse, reporters lingered at a distance. Dad held Tyler's hand tightly. Mom wiped her eyes. "I keep thinking," Dad murmured, "if I'd just said no that night. If I'd insisted on seeing you in person before wiring the money." "Dad," I said gently, "you were trying to help who you thought was your daughter." His jaw tightened. "Love makes you vulnerable." "Yes," I said quietly, "but it's not a weakness." Tyler tugged my sleeve. "Aunt Avery, where's Mommy going?" I crouched in front of him. "Mommy has to go away for a little while," I said carefully, "but she loves you more than anything, and we're going to take care of you until she comes home." He nodded slowly. "And Daddy?" I hesitated. "Daddy's gone, sweetheart." He looked down at his toy car again, then whispered, "Okay." The acceptance of children is devastating. They don't fight reality. They just absorb it. That night, I sat alone in my apartment. The immediate danger was gone. Vincent was in custody. Derek was buried. The money was recovered. But something felt unfinished. Because Derek had built that stash over months, which meant he had been lying long before the night Samantha forged my name, long before the BMW, long before the fake smiles at Sunday dinner. He had been planning, and that realization, it changed everything I thought I knew about him. The FBI didn't just arrest Vincent Corelli, they unraveled him. Over the next several weeks, raids stretched from Denver to Las Vegas to offshore accounts tied to the Bahamas. What Derek had stepped into wasn't some backroom poker circle. It was a criminal enterprise. Online gambling fronts, money laundering pipelines, illegal bookmaking operations hidden behind sleek websites and flashy ads. And Derek, he hadn't just been a desperate addict. He had become useful to them. A middleman, a runner. Someone smart enough with numbers to skim small percentages from large pools without immediate detection, until he got greedy. Rodriguez met me at a small conference room inside the federal building one afternoon. "There's something you need to understand," he said, sliding a file toward me. "Photos, bank statements, transaction logs." "Derek wasn't just losing money," Rodriguez continued. "He was siphoning it." I stared at the numbers. Transfers in odd increments. Cash withdrawals that didn't match known bets. "He built that $847,000 stash slowly," Rodriguez said. "Over months, maybe longer. So the $250,000 from my dad was the last desperate attempt to stay afloat. He used it as leverage for a massive bet. Lost. Then decided to run." "With Tyler?" I asked quietly. Rodriguez nodded once. "There were plane tickets booked under false names. 1 adult, 1 child." The air left my lungs. He had planned to take Tyler and disappear, leave Samantha to deal with the wreckage, leave my father bankrupt, leave us all cleaning up the damage. And he would have walked away with nearly $1 million. The betrayal felt sharper than the threat ever had. Because this wasn't addiction spiraling out of control. This was calculation. Samantha didn't know yet. She was still in county holding, waiting for federal transfer. When I visited her again, she looked up at me with swollen eyes. "Did they find him?" she asked. "Yes." "And?" "He's gone." Her face crumpled, but she didn't scream. She just closed her eyes and let silent tears slide down. "They said it was quick," I added gently. "A small mercy." "I loved him," she whispered. I swallowed. "I know. There's something cruel about loving someone who destroys you." "Did he at least try to come back?" she asked. I hesitated, because this was the part that would fracture her in a different way. "There were plane tickets," I said carefully. "He booked them under fake names." Her brow furrowed. "For who?" I met her eyes. "Him and Tyler." The color drained from her face. "No." "Yes." She shook her head violently. "He wouldn't." "He did." Silence filled the space between us. Then her shoulders collapsed. "He was going to leave me," she whispered. "Yes." She stared at the table. "Maybe that's what I deserved." "Don't," I said sharply. "You made a terrible decision. but you didn't deserve to be abandoned. She let out a shaky laugh. I stole from our father. Yes. And now Tyler doesn't have either parent. The truth hung heavy. But he has us, I said. That seemed to steady her slightly. I'm pleading guilty, she said. My lawyer negotiated 2 years, maybe 18 months with good behavior. That's the best outcome, I told her. She nodded. Tell Dad I'm sorry. I will. The day of sentencing felt surreal. The courtroom was sterile and unforgiving. Samantha stood straighter than I expected when the judge read the charges. Identity theft, wire fraud. Her voice didn't shake when she admitted guilt. 2 years. Possibility of parole after 18 months. She turned once before being led away. Her eyes found mine, not asking for rescue, just asking not to be forgotten. I nodded. I wouldn't. Outside the courthouse, reporters hovered but kept distance. Dad stood beside me, hands clasped. They're returning the money, he said quietly. Yes. He nodded slowly. But it doesn't feel like a victory. No, I agreed, because the money coming back didn't rewind time, didn't unforge my signature, didn't bring Derek back, didn't erase Tyler's confusion. That evening, Dad did something none of us expected. He called a family meeting. Tyler sat at the kitchen table coloring quietly. Dad placed a folder in front of us. I met with a financial advisor today, he said. And? Mom asked softly. I'm putting the recovered $250,000 into a trust. For Samantha? I asked. For Tyler. I blinked. Dad? He didn't ask for this mess, Dad said firmly. If something good can come out of all this, it's that boy having a future. Mom squeezed his hand. Tyler looked up. What's a trust? He asked. Dad smiled faintly. It's something that helps you go to college someday. Tyler grinned. Like Mommy wanted? Yes, Dad said quietly. Like Mommy wanted. I watched my father in that moment and realized something. He could have chosen anger, could have let bitterness calcify his heart. Instead, he chose protection for the smallest, most innocent member of our family. And maybe that was the real inheritance. 6 months later, I received a letter. Federal prison stationery. Samantha's handwriting. The same handwriting that once forged my name. Now careful and deliberate. I'm taking classes, she wrote, working in the library, going to meetings. I can't undo what I did, but I can make sure Tyler grows up knowing our family doesn't give up on each other. I folded the letter slowly. Outside, Tyler was riding his bike in my parents' driveway. He had started calling Dad Papa, and every time he did, Dad's eyes watered slightly. Grief doesn't disappear. It rearranges itself. And ours was still rearranging. But the immediate chaos, the police lights, the warehouse, the threats, they had faded into memory. What remained was quieter, heavier, more complicated. And it wasn't over yet, because forgiveness, it's not a single decision. It's a process, one we were still learning how to survive. 6 months after the arrest, the house feels different, not quieter, just rearranged. 2 chairs are missing from Sunday dinners now, Samantha's and Derek's. But there's a booster seat at the table instead. Tyler insists on sitting between Dad and me, as if proximity alone can guarantee permanence. Mom still makes pot roast every month. The smell still fills the house the same way it did the night everything shattered. But now, when Dad sets down his fork, my heart doesn't stop. Not anymore. Tyler started therapy in early winter. At first, he barely spoke during sessions. His counselor specializes in childhood trauma. Gentle voice, soft sweaters, walls covered in drawings from other kids who've survived things they never should have had to survive. Now he talks more, mostly about school. Sometimes about his dad. He doesn't ask many questions yet. Children pace their grief differently than adults. They take it in small, manageable doses. Last week, he asked me something unexpected while we were building a Lego set in the living room. Aunt Avery? Yeah, buddy? Did Daddy make a bad choice? The word choice stopped me. Not accident. Not mistake. Choice. Yes, I said carefully. He made some bad choices. Is that why he's gone? I nodded slowly. He studied a red Lego block between his fingers. Can I still love him? The question pierced straight through me. Yes, I said, my voice thick. You can love someone and still know they made bad choices. He seemed satisfied with that. He snapped the block into place and moved on. Children have a way of stepping forward, even when adults are still stuck looking backward. Dad visits Samantha once a month. He doesn't say much about those visits, but when he comes home, he always sits a little heavier in his chair. She's taking classes, he told me recently. Accounting. Says she wants to understand money the right way this time. I almost smiled. That's good. She looks older, he added quietly. Prison does that. He nodded. I forgave her, he said suddenly. I looked at him. When? The day I saw her in cuffs, he replied. Anger wouldn't fix it. That's who my father is. A construction foreman for 30 years. Calloused hands, straight spine. Simple principles. But his love? It's not simple. It's stubborn. The trust for Tyler is officially set up now. Dad insisted on naming it something formal and dignified. Tyler's Future Fund. $250,000. Returned and repurposed. Maybe something good can come from all this mess, Dad said the day he signed the papers. I realized then that he wasn't trying to erase what happened. He was trying to transform it. And maybe that's the only power we ever really have. As for me, I still replay that Sunday dinner sometimes. The moment Dad asked the question, the fork slipping from my hand, Samantha's pale face, the flashing lights outside the window. But what haunts me most isn't the police, or Vincent's smile, or even Derek's betrayal. It's the realization that disaster doesn't arrive with sirens. It sits at your table, laughs at your father's bad football jokes, holds your nephew's hand crossing the street, and you don't see it coming until it's already taken root. I used to think family meant safety. Now I understand it means something more complicated. It means accountability. It means consequences. It means sometimes calling the police when you never imagined you would. It means visiting your sister in prison, even when she forged your name. It means telling an 8-year-old boy a simplified version of a brutal truth. It means choosing not to let one person's addiction define the rest of you. Last Sunday, something small happened. Tyler spilled his juice at dinner. It splashed across the tablecloth. The same tablecloth Samantha's water had soaked the night she was arrested. Everyone froze for a second. Then Tyler gasped. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Dad laughed softly. It's just juice, buddy. Mom stood up to grab a towel, and for a split second, I saw it clearly. We weren't fragile anymore. We were scarred. There's a difference. Scars mean you healed, even if the mark remains. Samantha writes every week. Her letters are less frantic now, more reflective. In her last one, she wrote, I can't undo what I did, but I can make sure Tyler grows up knowing that even when adults fail, family doesn't disappear. I read that line 3 times, because that's the truth of it. The police cars drove away. The courtroom doors closed. The headlines faded, but we're still here every Sunday, minus 2 chairs, plus one little boy who now calls my father Papa and hugs him like he's anchoring himself to solid ground. And maybe that's what family really is. Not perfection, not blind loyalty, not denial. It's what remains after everything falls apart. It's the choice to stay, to rebuild, to forgive, slowly, imperfectly, but intentionally. The night Dad asked about the $250,000 felt like the end of us. It wasn't. It was the beginning of something harder and somehow stronger.